we've been really enamored with the traditional models for governance and for everything else, like for fundraising, for evaluation. And while a lot of folks are exploring trying to change and reimagine other aspects of the sector, like fundraising, with the community-centric fundraising movement, et cetera, I know there's also been a lot of evaluators who've been thinking about how do we really think about like decolonizing outcomes and things like that. And yet I don't see this happening in the governance space a lot. We've basically have had this traditional model is like, here is this board. It's a whole bunch of volunteers who see about 1% of the work that we do and who often do not reflect the communities, but they are given vast power over the organization. They get power to supervise the staff, to oversee values and strategic directions. This is what it is. This is how they operate, and that's it. You can't do anything else with it. You're kind of stuck with it. And we also are very enamored with like the corporate structure. So we take things that may work in a corporate setting and we place it in a nonprofit setting. And we also have a model where we really are geared towards people with money. So there's a whole bunch of disconnects and dissonances that are out there. And we've just, for a long time, just accepted it as par for the course. And I don't think we should accept that anymore. I think it's actually been extremely destructive. And if everyone's talking about equity and diversity and inclusion, then I think that reimagining governance is not just a nice to have, it is a necessity. I don't think we can actually achieve equity, diversity, and inclusion if we don't reimagine governance. I always talk about like the sort of how we need to draw a new fish in our sector, right? And this is in reference to a study where researchers ask kids to draw a fish. They ask one group of kids, draw a fish, whatever kind of fish you want. And a second group of kids, they said, draw a fish, but here's an example of a fish that someone else drew, right? But don't worry about it, draw whatever kind of fish you want. And what they discovered was that the kids who were not given a drawing of a fish, they drew very creative fish. And the kids who had seen the drawing of a fish, even though it was just a very short period of time, like a split second, it imprinted it in their minds. Right. And so they drew fish that looked very similar, even though they were told it's okay to be creative. And I bring this up because this applies to governance. We've had this sort of fish archetype in our minds about how boards should be. And we lock onto these archetypes and templates because of how we've been trained, right? We've been trained by donors, by funders, by each other about how we should think. And it gets reinforced from one generation of leaders to another. And it's very hard to get out of that, right? It's very hard to be like, hey, maybe we should think about something completely different. For us to get out of this sort of mindset, well, I think we need to be a lot more conscientious about how they've been affecting us. When we sit down and examine these things, to be a lot more courageous in challenging these systems, right? Understanding that there are lots of power and so on. And I think for our sector to realize its full potential, we have to really re-examine many of these archetypes and templates that we have and really start thinking about drawing some new fish. And maybe it's not a fish. Maybe it's like like a llama or something,